Hey everyone, and welcome. As a researcher, you know you're producing more data now than ever before. But have you ever stopped to think about what actually happens to all that valuable data after you've published your paper? Well, that's what we're going to dig into today. So let's start with a big question. Is your data speaking the same language as the rest of the world? And I'm not just being philosophical here. I mean, think about it. In today's hyper-connected research world, if your data can't communicate with other systems and other researchers, it might as well not even exist. This really gets to the core of your work's discoverability and, ultimately, its impact. All right, so why all the fuss about better data? Well, it's because we are living in an era of a massive data deluge. The old way of doing things, publishing a paper and then letting the data that backs it up just fade away on some server somewhere, that's just not going to cut it anymore. Science is moving too fast, and it demands a totally new approach. You see, here's the real problem we're all facing. So much incredibly valuable research data just disappears. It gets lost on an old hard drive, or maybe it's saved in some bizarre format that nobody else can possibly use. This kind of digital disorganization has become a huge roadblock for scientific progress and, maybe most importantly, for reproducibility. And this is where the solution comes in, and it's actually a pretty elegant one: the FAIR principles. These were developed back in 2016, and they're basically a set of guidelines designed to make our data a first-class citizen in the research world, just as important as the final publication. So let's break down what FAIR actually stands for. All right, first up is F for findable. This is all about making sure your data can be found by anyone and by anything, like a computer search engine. The way we do this is by giving it a globally unique and persistent identifier, or a PID. The most common one you'll see is a DOI, a digital object identifier. It's basically like giving your dataset its own permanent web address that will never, ever change. Next up is A for accessible. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. Accessible does not mean your data has to be completely open, like a free-for-all for everyone on the internet. It simply means that the rules for accessing it are crystal clear and standardized. Whether it's open or restricted or under embargo, a person or a machine knows exactly what the steps are to even ask for access. Then we've got I for interoperable, and this one is all about speaking a common language. So if findable is like knowing a book exists in the library, interoperable is making sure that when you open that book, it's written in a language you can actually read. In data terms, that means using standard file formats and vocabularies so your data can be easily combined and analyzed with other data sets, even automatically. And that brings us to the last letter, R for reusable. For your data to really be reusable by someone else, it needs a ton of context. We're talking about things like rich metadata, which is just, data about your data, and provenance, which is its history. And critically, it needs a clear license. This is like knowing the library's rules for photocopying a book. Without that license, other researchers are just left guessing if they can legally and ethically build upon your incredible work. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how does it actually work here in Canada? Well, the good news is we have this whole ecosystem of tools ready to go. To make your data findable, we have things like the Lunaris portal and DataCite Canada for getting those DOIs. For secure accessibility, there are tools like Globus for managing big data transfers. And for reusability, things like Creative Commons licenses are the gold standard. So you see, these aren't just abstract ideas. They are real, tangible services available to you right now. Now, you might be wondering, okay, why should I really care about this? Well, for Canadian researchers, this is a big deal because it's now a national priority. It's all laid out in the Tri-Agency Research Data Management Policy. The policy itself really boils down to three main pillars, and they're pretty straightforward. First, your university or institution needs to have a public strategy for how it supports data management. Second, for a lot of grants now, you're going to need a data management plan, or a DMP. And third, you'll be required to deposit the data that supports your publications into a digital repository. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a lot of extra work. But here's the really good news. You are not on your own in this, at all. Canada has built an incredible national infrastructure and a support system to help you succeed. Let's talk about the actual tools at your fingertips. Got a huge data set? We're talking terabytes? You're going to want to look at the Federated Research Data Repository, or FDR. Working with smaller, more tabular data, Borealis is probably your best bet. Need to find other Canadian research data? That's what the Lunaris portal is for. And for that mandatory data management plan, the DMP Assistant literally walks you through it step by step. But it's not just about the digital tools, and this is so important. There's a human layer too. The Digital Research Alliance of Canada coordinates a whole national network of experts. You've got specialists in data curation, DMPs, metadata, you name it. The bottom line here, you're absolutely not alone in this. If you have a question, there's an expert ready to help you find the answer. So we've talked about the technical side of things, but there's another absolutely critical dimension to this whole conversation. Making data available is one thing, but we have to ask, who is this data about? And who really has the right to control it? FAIR is a fantastic start, but on its own, it doesn't cover these crucial ethical dimensions, especially when it comes to Indigenous data sovereignty.
And this is a really important distinction to make. You can think of it like this. FAIR is mostly about making data technically useful, but the OCAP principles, that's ownership, control, access, and possession, and the CARE principles, they're about people, purpose, and fundamental rights. They assert that Indigenous communities have jurisdiction over their own data. The mantra we're all adopting in Canada is to #BeFairAndCare, making sure that technical utility never, ever overrides our ethical responsibilities and the right to data sovereignty.
All right, to wrap things up, let's talk about what's in it for you, right? Your career. Because beyond just doing good science, there's a very clear professional benefit to adopting all of these practices. It really is that simple. When you manage your data well, your work gets seen more. When other researchers can find, access, and reuse your data, they cite your dataset directly. That directly boosts your impact and raises your visibility in your field. It's a win-win. So I want to leave you with this one last thought. The data you're collecting right now, today, could hold the key to a future breakthrough that you haven't even imagined yet. By making your data fair, you're not just archiving the past, you're literally enabling the future. The only question is, will you give it a chance to be found?